all of a sudden, this was something that is in our own backyard for the first time ever.
In today's episode, we're joined by Jack Davis, founder of It's Cool to Cry. Jack is on a mission to make mental health conversations mainstream through his innovative brand, which combines empowering apparel with impactful mental health resources. With a personal story that drives his passion, Jack shares how he turned his personal experiences into a movement to normalize mental health discussions and support those struggling. Welcome to the Fail Wisdom Podcast, Jack.
G'day, Paul. Thank you for having me. Thanks for that intro. That was a beauty.
Yeah, it's great to have you on, and I'm a real advocate of mental health, and you were referred to me by Rochelle Rich from emotions.org, who I interviewed very early in the podcast. Absolutely lovely person, and doing some amazing work out there as well in the mental health space. Very similar in a way to what you're doing, and we'll get into your story a little bit later, but anyone that advocates for mental health and helps in that area, it's a great pleasure to have them on the show. So I'm really looking forward to chatting with you. And so let's just get straight into it. And can you share with us your journey that led to the founding of It's Cool to Cry, and what inspired you to start this initiative?
Yeah, for sure, Paul. And I have to go back a little while here, and I probably should also mention that there's a trigger warning regarding mental illness and suicide. So for any listeners out there where this isn't going to be on their plate at the moment, maybe come back to this one later when you're ready to take this on board. But
yeah.
10 years ago, I was dating a girl called Ellie. Ellie was young. She was loud. She was social. She was well-travelled, had a great vocabulary, very bright, very funny. She had a great group of friends and a really, really supporting, loving family. And this is what we define as probably the foundation of things that are the foundation that would lead to a happy and healthy life. But unfortunately, over a matter of months, Ellie became really sick. And she no longer was that person. She was overcome with mental illness and no longer had the motivation to get out of bed, to shower, to leave the house. And despite Ellie's best and bravest efforts, she was overcome with this mental illness, and Ellie died from suicide. And this was at age 25. So I was a similar age, 25, 26, and all of a sudden this was something that is in our own backyard for the first time ever. And it was no longer something that was on the news or happened to a friend of a friend or on the other side of town. This was real, and this was heartbreaking and shocking. So what this did was kickstart a fact-finding mission on how to find out what Ellie was going through regarding mental illness, and before she died. So I started to see a therapist to find out what was going on. Before that could start, Ellie ended up dying. So these therapy sessions were finding out about mental illness and suicide, and also finding out about grief and what these two things were and how they interrelated. But naturally, after Ellie's death, this is really devastating. I was sad, and I would be crying a lot. And I'd be crying in the shower, in the car, falling asleep, and waking up. And then one day I was getting ready for work, and I saw a pair of Ellie's runners in my closet that she left there. And I decided that was the day where I didn't want to be sad anymore. I was done with the feeling of being sick to my stomach, the frog in my throat, and the tears, and just being upset. So I said, I'm done. I don't want to be sad anymore, and I parked it. I didn't forget Ellie, but I just stopped being sad. So I naturally, life moves forward, and I got got on with my life and moved overseas, got new jobs, got new partners. And what I was finding is I was noticing patterns in my life and in my relationships and patterns of how I was making myself and those around me feel that I wasn't really happy with. So I was trying to figure this out and what was going on. So I wasn't satisfied with my own tools, so I took myself back to therapy to figure out, what is this? Why am I acting this way? And batches of therapy would help for a little while, but I'd go back into relationships or back into everyday life, and I'd be finding these patterns would start creeping into my life again. And these patterns were, I was angry, I was bitter, I was a hothead, I was saying and doing things, flying off the handle, shooting from the hip, saying things to people that I would later regret. And when my head hit the pillow, I'd be like, hang on, this isn't a person I would want to be. And I would be having arguments rather than discussions. And I was always ready to go, ready to fire, a hothead, always bubbling away. And in and out of therapy, trying to figure out what was going on. And I don't want to discount the body of work or what I had been done, but when I figured it out, it was a light bulb moment. And what I'd done is I had prematurely halted grief and were keen in sadness. So I was bottling up all this sadness and it was coming out in unhelpful ways, which I just mentioned before, which was typically anger. So I learned through therapy, through a lot of self-development, a lot of internalizing and thinking and talking, is that we are allowed to be sad, we are allowed to be angry, we're allowed to be happy, we're allowed to have all of these emotions. They're all natural and they're normal. There's no good or bad. So once I realized and started practicing this, the sadness came back in. Then I could feel that when I would be watching movies or I'd hear certain songs or I'd hear stories and I would feel sad, and this is a new feeling. I haven't had this for a while. The anger remained, but no longer was I that hothead. I was able to regulate it properly, and the happiness and joy continued. So rather than having this operating system where I was happy, angry, I had all of these emotions and respected all of these emotions, and I was traveling more like this, and I was much more calm. And I remember the day, I remember the feelings, and my shoulders relaxed. My knees were no longer felt like they were made of jelly. And I was able to navigate scenarios way more appropriately and way more calmly. So I had this ultimate respect for noticing emotions, not ignoring them, and speaking about them. I'm like, great, this is beautiful. And that's the way I live my life. I'm not exhausted anymore. I'm much more calm. The people around me aren't being affected by my bad behavior, and I'm not being affected by my bad behavior. This is great. So I led the charge and led my life down that way. And then in 2001, one of my mate's dads died from suicide. And this was, again, really confusing, threw me back in the thick of what we went through with Ellie. But the major thing that came out of this was we've got Ellie, young, female, just starting her career. And then we've got Matt, who's male, older, and just finishing his career. And how different are these people on paper? But they've both suffered from the same disease and died the same way. What about all the people in here? And what about people outside the Ellies and outside the Matts? I have to do something knowing what I know now and this unfortunate experience. So there was a lot of brainstorming, a lot of sketching, a lot of brand names, ideas. And this is where I landed on It's Cool to Cry, which is a clothing brand that empowers people to be proud of their relationship with mental health. We're trying to get people to talk about their feelings and emotions before they become overwhelming, because the more and more people I speak to, the more and more people know how powerful it is to talk about something, to get it off their chest and to work through unhelpful situations and emotions, either with their therapist, with a friend, with their family member. So this is my way of trying to encourage people to do it without the need of drugs, drinking, a crisis moment, or professional intervention, because you could be wearing it school to cry down the street, and this is happening. There's thousands of people, I mean, lucky enough that thousands of people have already bought something, and the feedback from people is like, I was at the coffee shop today and someone asked me about this shirt, and they could tell their story, they could tell Ellie's story, and the other person, whether or not they contributed in that conversation, they've unlocked the thought of like, oh, hang on, maybe I can talk about my stuff as well. Or maybe I have to go home and ask someone about what they're going through. So I want these conversations to happen informal and ad hoc, organic ways, because this is what we should be doing, because mental health, just like physical health, is normal. So I've got a real push for this brand to be the catalyst for some really helpful conversations, so that we don't have these really sad stories about Ellie and about Matt. And my position in all of this isn't to do with suicide prevention and suicide intervention. We're talking all the way back down here and having these conversations earlier rather than later, get them off your chest, and feel the weightlessness that they bring, feel the clarity that they bring, so that we don't have them in our heads bouncing around and carrying them before they become something bigger that we didn't initially see them coming, but we've allowed them to fester in our minds. So this is where I'm trying to get to, Paul, and I'm really hoping, the customers that have bought already, and hopefully the customers that buy in future, are using it these ways, and that's the power of the brand right now.
Yeah, it's a real worldwide issue, and I know particularly in Australia, there's unfortunately a lot of suicides happening, and so anything that can be done to help with that. And I think conversations are so important. I did also interview Graham Cowan from, he's a mental health advocate, he works in that area, and he was saying, how important it is to meet with people that you trust and talk about things. So, like, for example, every week he meets with two other friends. Actually, one of those guys I used to work out of the incubator at Macquarie University, Bernie, and they all meet every week, and they talk and they discuss things and how they're feeling and all that. If you've got someone safe that you can talk to, that's really important. And now also loneliness being a major epidemic, is recognized a major epidemic that really affects mental health more than anything. And so I guess there's, lots of triggers. So now you said that like suicide is an illness. Well, it's an illness that I guess would it mainly be depression that leads to suicide, or and do you classify being suicidal as an illness as well?
Sorry, maybe I mixed up words. I didn't quite articulate myself properly, but the way I see it's mental illness, and that could be the three most common types of mental illness are depression disorders, anxiety disorders, and substance or addiction disorders. So it could be drugs, alcohol, and depending on the severity of those disorders, that could lead to suicide. Now, without having the numbers off the top of my head, there are other ways or other reasons that people choose to take their own life. But in terms of mental illness, they're the main three disorders that are affecting people at the moment.
I remember somewhere that I read that the people that actually try to take their life, like ones that, say, for example, jump off a bridge or something like that, the ones that don't die, when they all say the moment they stepped off, that very split second, every single one, they regretted it. The moment that they did it.
Yeah, and so I just last just last few months ago now, almost 2 months ago, we lost a mate to suicide. And I mentioned Bo because the night before, Bo got a phone call from a mate saying, "Hey, what's going on?" And 2 weeks before, I was at a wedding with a few of our mates, and a few weeks before that, at Matt's party with a few of our mates, and people were asking, "Mate, what's going on? Feel like you're a bit off. Tell us what's going on. We can help if you need the help." Bo was like, "Nah, I'm fine. I can get through this, whatever it is."
Yeah.
He wasn't being truthful with what was going on in his head. And the only way I can try and make some sense out of this is that the disease that Bo was coping with was sneaking around him and sneaking around his mind so that then Bo could sneak around us. And the level of pain and illness that Bo must have been suffering must have been also, there's a positive correlation with shame, because I believe that the higher the pain level and maybe the longer that they've been dealing it with, the higher the shame level. So the harder it is to talk about it. But to your point, Paul, about that people regret it, that's true. Like, that is common, that people regret. It's almost making that split-second decision where their mind is started to take over and sneak around, and do the bridge or take that irreversible action that can't be reversed. But the people that step back off that bridge, for example, they're the ones that can tell you that, fuck, I am glad I didn't do that. And they see the light, and they are lucky enough to have that chance. But it's the voices and it's the negative thoughts and the sneaking that these diseases can do to make them take their own life and make that decision.
Yeah, and it's so important to talk about it. And you know, the whole thing about, I think it's a bit of a phenomenon here in Australia, but Aussie blokes traditionally, mate, we're tough, we'll be okay. We don't need, I'm fine. I don't need to talk about that stuff, that mental health stuff. Like, there's a bit of an attitude. I think it's changing, and that's why I think even the title of your startup is fantastic, because it's cool to cry, because like Aussie blokes don't cry, mate. Like, that sort of attitude, suppressing everything, suppressing emotions, and you talked about that before. That suppressing anger, suppressing grief, suppressing anything, that will lead to other problems and just make the situation worse. And so, what do you think about that? Do you think the whole Aussie blokes, will be all right, type of thing, is that changing, or is that now old school, or?
Yeah, it is changing. That is old school, it's outdated, and it's harmful, those thoughts and that way of thinking. But we're turning a big wheel here. And whilst I feel like in my echo chamber, it's changing, and it's changing maybe faster than ever. There are 25, 30 million people here, and we'll consider half of those male, that there's a lot of people to get around to. And it's not just delivering the message so that they don't go, "Oh, yeah. It's delivering the message so it hits them between the eyes and the ears, so they're like, actually, I can talk about my mental health, and I can work on my mental health." And I feel like there's two really harmful thoughts that go around our heads when it comes to our own mental health. And the one is, "Oh, you're right, I'll get over this," which is sort of what you alluded to, and my problems aren't big enough. Now, these are harmful because it doesn't work. This one doesn't work. You can't think your way out of absolutely everything. I know there's power in internalizing, but you can't think your way out of everything. Life's really tough. I don't know why we're all choosing to do it alone. We're allowed to put our hand up and ask for a bit of help. Because I'm sure, Paul, if you put your hand up and one of your friends what would their reaction be? They'd probably say, "Oh, I'll help you. I'm here for you." And same if it was vice versa. We've got to get better at trusting our friends and family that they are there to help us. We don't have to carry this alone. And this other thought of my problems aren't big enough is really harmful, because I talk about the analogy I use is a mental health pain scale. So if we are on a physical health pain scale, whether you're at a 2 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10, you're going to get these things looked at, because the 8s are pretty nasty and that could be something chronic. So let's get this checked out quick smart. And the 2s, we want to get these 2s on the physical health pain scale checked out before they become a 3, a 4, or a 5, or we have a lot of 2s compounding, and that becomes something really bad. We've got to think about our mental health the same way. Is it on a scale?
Yeah.
It's not a yes or a no. It's not black, white. It's not binary. Whether you're on a 2 or an 8 on the mental health pain scale, you want to get your 8s checked out, because that could be something nasty and chronic. Same way we want to talk about and look at the 2s before they become a 3, 4, or a 5, or the 2s compound, because this is the easy one. This is the easy way to get nip things in the butt. So I want to get people thinking about it that way, where your problems do matter. Your problems are never going to be better or worse than someone else's, because the reality is someone will always have it better and someone will always have it worse. So stop comparing, because your problem right now, whether it's a 2 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10, is really relevant to you. So go and talk about these things, or go and fix these things. Go and find ways to fix things. Like you said before, go and find your safe space. Go and create your safe space and have the conversations and see how you feel afterwards. Don't think that it will always change next week, or it will change another time, without putting some sort of action in place and talking about it when we're at a 2 out of 10 or a 3 out of 10 or a 4 out of 10 on the mental health pain scale is a great way to start. Yeah. And another physical health analogy I use to get people to shift their attitudes towards their own mental health is the cancer patient analogy. We've got 2 cancer patients in hospital. Patient A has been given 2 years to live, no more, no less. That's a pretty horrible card to be dealt with.
Yeah.
They're probably feeling devastated, heartbroken, maybe a bit angry with the situation. The patient next to them has got the same type of cancer. They've been given 1 year to live, no more, no less. They'd be feeling the same things: devastated, sad, maybe angry. Now, on paper, this person's situation is worse. But does that mean that this person can't complain and can't talk about how they're feeling and can't talk about the situation? Definitely not, because that's still pretty bad, isn't it? So we've got to get better at saying, we've got to get better at looking at our mental health this way. I might be doing it rough at work, but so-and-so's doing it rougher. You can still talk about yours. You can still do this stuff. So this is where I want to get to people to shift their attitudes towards mental health, and rather than say mental health doesn't affect me, I'm not affected, they think about it like physical health. They go, hang on, I can work on and I can improve my mental health just like I can work on and improve my physical health. And let's go from there. Because then you can follow your bouncing ball and say, right, I need to talk about this with this person, and start to move through some unhelpful feelings and situations and get better and feel better. And then not only help yourself, but help people around you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's sort of funny because also what can help your mental health as well is, like, a lot of people look at people that are better off than them. So when you compare people that are better off than you always feel like, oh, if only I have that. And then, but if you actually look at, actually I'm better off than a lot of people. Like, for example, in Australia here, like, let's say materially, economically, we're better off than probably 95% of the planet, right? And I remember once this old taxi driver, the funny guy, he was saying, I'm a millionaire, and I'm saying, oh, really? Why are you saying that? He said, yeah, compared to the people in Africa, he probably didn't have much money at all. It's all the attitude, you know what I mean? So he was happy because for him, living here, he was like a millionaire. And so, yeah, that comparison, can be, it can be used in different ways, I guess. So,
I think Comparison is a funny one because there's a saying, comparison is the thief of joy. And comparing, whether you're comparing up or comparing down, or punching up, punching down, it can be, I feel like when we're comparing, we should, rather than be comparing, we should be grateful for what we've got. And like that guy,
Yeah.
I'm grateful for, because I'm in Australia, I've got a job, I've got some sort of income, and I've got some money. So rather than saying, oh, fuck, lucky I'm not that guy, or I wish I was that person, but say, I'm grateful because I've got a roof over my head, I know where the next meal's coming, I've got my health.
Yeah.
I might be struggling a little bit now with my mental health, but I've got a plan in place. We're grateful for what we've got, because there's a lot of research that goes into being grateful and shifting mindsets if you practice it over some time. It's definitely not my area of expertise, but I know it has a lot of power.
Yeah, absolutely.
In being practicing.
Absolutely. Even in my startup, every day we'd start and we'd say, okay, what are you grateful for today? And there were some that were like, would always come up with different things, and others like, oh, my coffee, or every day the same thing. And it took a long time to shift people's mindsets, because there's so many things you can be grateful for, like your family, or like breathing oxygen, or like, it can be anything really, like clean running water. It's just a million things that you can be grateful for, and it does change your mindset. And I do that practice every day as well, and it is very helpful, and I would recommend it to everybody out there as well.
It's good. How do you do your gratitude board? Do you write it out or read it, or just say it out loud? How do you do it?
No, when I wake up, I just put on some really peaceful music, and I sort of, this may sound a bit weird, but I get in touch with, you want to call it your spiritual guide, guardian angel, whatever you want to call it, and just feel that vibration of love or whatever. It could be my mum that passed away recently. Like, for me, there's someone there, or there's entities there, and then you feel that, like a parent feels for a child, right? That intense love, like I feel for my kids. So I feel that from that. And then I just go through things that I'm grateful for, that my family's okay, and these beautiful kids that I have, and all that sort of stuff. So that's how I do it. And before I go to sleep at night, I do the same sort of practice as well.
Yeah, love it. Awesome.
Yeah. I was at a talk about 10, 15 years ago, and look, it's sort of related in a way. It's a really powerful, horrible, powerful thing that this guy was talking about. So this gentleman was talking, and he was saying that 10 years before, his family, he had 2 daughters, and he was split up from his wife, and he was living a few suburbs away. And one of his daughters, he had 2 daughters, she had a boyfriend that got really jealous when they broke up, and it got really silly. And then one night, it was the 2 sisters were there and one of the friends, and this boyfriend came over and he killed all of them. This is actually in the North Shore in Sydney about 20 years ago. It's a terrible story. And then the police contacted him, and then he went into shock, and he was in shock for a very long time. And then he went into, grief for a really long time. And then that turned into anger. And after a couple of years of being angry, he realized that he was going to be the next victim. So he said, he had to forgive that person, because otherwise he was going to be the next victim. And so, I mean, it's not really related exactly to what you're saying, but what a powerful story. It's like forgiveness, or, just thinking, like you said before, suppressing emotions is not good, but you have to come to a realization that, you have to move on, but you have to deal with those emotions appropriately.
Yeah, I mean, that's a devastating story. I can't even imagine what that would feel like.
Yeah.
And to his credit, like, he chose to move forward, but knowing that his life couldn't continue holding on that grudge, that overwhelming probably hate and anger, and he was better off not necessarily moving on, but moving forward from that situation. And whether or not he fully forgave that person, he forgave that person enough so that he could become more satisfied with the way he was going to handle himself day to day. So, that's credit to him, whoever that guy is. Like that would be very tough.
You have this startup, and how long have you been going for now?
So it was a bit of a love thing, just a little passion project that I would do on the side, or on weekends or at nights when I got home from my paid job. But I lost that job in July last year, so I thought, fuck it, I'll push all the cheeks in, and I'll see if I can make this work. So I really started trading, and when I say trading, it means I just wasn't selling. I started in July last year.
Yeah.
I think if this is a podcast about founding businesses and entrepreneurial, and like you mentioned just in our chat before about making mistakes, there've been heaps of mistakes to where we are now, and there'll be plenty more. But they're the lessons, aren't they? These mistake capers, and that's what I've been trying to do. And it's it's tough. Definitely, it's hard. There's no money, like no constant money coming in to like pay for bills or mortgages and this sort of stuff. So you've really just got to be in the grind and be in the traffic to figure out ways to make things work.
Yeah. And so tell us, about that journey so far. So over the last year, and then some of these mistakes and failures that have happened along the way, and how you got over them, and what you learned from them.
Yep. So I think the best thing that has happened for the business is that I went and did a course on how to grow e-commerce businesses. And without that, I would be like, at least now I feel like the business is out of the blocks. But without that 6 months of education, it would have taken me 6 years to figure out some of these things, because I've definitely never run a business before. I had a very small experience with running e-commerce businesses, and in a past life, I'd had some experience in sourcing product, but definitely not garments and apparel. So without that education, I wouldn't have been able to get anywhere near where I was now. So not only did that education give me the right things to look at and go and follow in terms of how to write an ad, how to launch an ad, how to launch an electric email marketing campaign, all of these sorts of things to try and bring in business. Not only did it teach me that, it taught me to focus, and the focus on what is important in your business. The only thing that's important in the business as the founder is the sale, because without a sale, you can't keep the doors open. So and like that's the cut and dry. But like you can make your website 100% right, and you feel like it needs to be this pretty and this and that. But if there's no one visiting it, and if there's no one visiting it with an intent to buy, then the website means bugger all. So it was all this focus on how do we find the next sale? How do we get them to spend X, and how do we get them to spend X again? So those things really, really helped me to at least get a focus on it, because without that, I would be on some sort of blog or on some sort of YouTube channel trying to figure it all out. So I think the important thing for me was that I got educated and I put the work in on learning as much as I could, as quick as possible, to get me out of the blocks. So now that I'm out of the blocks, it's good, because you've got customers you can talk to, you've got some sort of social proof in reviews, and you've got social proof or some sort of following on a social page, which gives you a bit of it gives you avenues for feedback, so you can improve your product, you can improve your messaging, you can improve your overall offer. So that has really helped. But mistakes galore, like even things as small as like spelling mistakes on organic posts, paid posts, marketing campaigns, email marketing campaigns, and that sort of thing too. Having a whole bunch of ads for my male product pointing to female audiences and not realizing ages, and then packing orders in my garage for like 2 weeks. I'm like, why are there no male products being sold? They just dropped off the face of the planet. And then I go back and I look at all my things and I'm like, oh, far out. I said all leaked to my female products. No wonder. So it's that, and like that's the power. I reckon the power for me is it actually goes very closely in hand with mental health, but about making mistakes and then making mistakes in business is be self-compassionate. You go, oof, we will never make that mistake again. Don't be too hard on yourself. Fix it and move on. Stop, accept, and improve. And that is so good to do with mental health and business as well. Mistakes, telling things to the factory about colours, about cuts, about timings, about not making decisions quick enough, and then you miss the lead time or whatever it is. So all of these things, as I said before the call, is the mistakes, but the mistakes go hand in hand with lessons. So mistakes are great, and they're a great chance to learn, because you just get better and better and better, and you know next time you're not going to make that mistake.
Absolutely, yeah. It's all about making mistakes and failures and learning from it. The lessons learned and the wisdom gained from that. Yeah, absolutely. And it's just that's life, isn't it, as well? And don't be hard on yourself, like I said, for business reasons and for mental health reasons. It's really important not to be hard on yourself, and it's just part of running a business, part of life that we just learn every day. We make mistakes and try and be a little bit better every time.
For sure. And it's hard yakka. Like, it is hard yakka. But compared to 12 months ago when I was at my paid role, I was waking up with anxiety and dread. And I was so scared of making mistakes. And, there was a bit of natural therapy in there that I was trying to uncover that. But now, 12 months later, I'm waking up with stress and excitement because I really want this to work. It's obviously a passion. I froth mental health, and the mistakes will come and go, but I'm not afraid to make them. And if I make them quick and learn and move on and go for it. And don't be afraid to ask for help. Like I said, this is a one-man band. Like this does not bring in a full-time income for sure. Like I labour for a landscaper to bring some money in at the moment, but this is not a full-time. I do this by myself, is what I'm saying. But I ask so many people for help because I'm not an expert in graphic design. Can't take a photo to save myself. I can build a website here or there, but I can't code. So I've got all these people. You got to pull the lever of ask for the help when you need it. And the same goes for your mental health. You shouldn't be afraid to ask for help. I didn't know that I'd be getting an analogy between founding a business and mental health today, but there you go. Like, we can't be afraid to ask for help. We do it for our business. We do it for our physical health. Now we should be doing it for our mental health as well.
Yeah. And you're actually doing people a favor when you ask for help, because when you help people, it actually helps your mental health as well. It's like people that feel good about themselves are usually people that are helping others or doing something good like you're doing in the space.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
It's important to ask for that help. Now, running a business or a startup can be pretty grueling as well. And we're talking about mental health today, and you're trying to help people with their mental health. So what do you do to maintain your mental health, when things get tough?
Yeah, good question. I think there's just good habits that I had in place to give myself the best chance to have good mental health. And again, if I draw a parallel to physical health, like I went to the gym on Monday night. It wasn't my best workout, but it's better than if I didn't go. And so what I always try and do in terms of my mental health, to give myself the best chance possible to have a clear mind and the energy to work through things. So it'll start in the morning, or I get up early, go for a walk. Typically, I don't check my phone for a little while because no one needs me at that time of day anyway, and I don't want anyone. No one needs me, and I don't need them at that time of day. Go up, go for a walk, have a bit of a selfish time. That's for me, and get some early morning sunlight in the eyes because that's going to help with sleep later on in the day. So they're the first two things: wake up, walk, and a bit of three things, and a bit of time to myself. I think that's really important for me. Then, depending on the day of the week, there's some sort of exercise or walking. Diet's pretty important. And speaking with friends. A few of the things in here I've mentioned are physical health things that have a mental health benefit. So don't want people to rely on this. Whereas they say, what do you do for your mental health? They go, I run for my mental health. I've got a problem with that because that's not addressing your mental health. This is a physical health activity with great mental health benefits. So what your question was is, what do you do for your mental health? So for my mental health, it is that selfishness at the start of the day. And it is wake up early so I can have the good sleep, because the good sleep definitely helps our mental health. So they're the two things that I'm doing for my mental health. The third thing I mentioned in there that I'm doing for my mental health is being with friends and family and socializing or talking to people. Because whether or not I'm talking about my mental health, I'm connecting with people and I'm having fun, or I'm asking them for help with my mental health, or they're asking me. What that's doing is that's providing me a great connection. And whether I can't put a scale or a value or a quantitative thing on that, the qualitative aspect to that is massive, because just by talking with each other, even today, or like we're talking about things and we're talking about our mental health, that's good for us. And it's good to be able to talk about these things. And we're showing some sort of vulnerability. We're showing some sort of need for connection. We're not pretending that we're perfect. We are able to connect on a completely different level as strangers. And like, if I can do that with my friends and family, I know that that's benefiting my mental health. Now, my stick is talking about our feelings and emotions before they become overwhelming. So I've got a tool, and this is a tool that I want to teach people more and more, and I call it the timeline tool. And this is purely about communicating and having a better mental health outcome. So if there's a situation in my mind that's been banging around for 24 hours or 48 hours or a week, I revisit it and say, right, this has been in my head for 24 hours. Can I do it for another 24? Yes or no? Yeah. Okay, this has been in my head for 48 hours. Can I do it until the end of the week? Yes or no? Okay, it's a week now that this is bouncing around in my head. Can I do another week? Yes or no? And it will be no then. So that, okay, cool. Now I need to figure out exactly how I'm feeling about this and who I'm going to talk to about it to try and navigate through it. Because right now, after a week, this scenario, this situation hasn't evolved or evaporated. It's now becoming unhelpful because it's going around and around and around. I'm ruminating on it. I'm letting it spin around, and it's stuck there. It's taking up valuable time and energy and space in my mind, body, and soul. So this is what I like to do. I put a timeline tool in place, because a very common question that I get is, how do we know when to speak about our mental health? And how do we know when to speak about something that's bothering us? And it's a really good question, because it is hard to answer, because everyone's so different and every situation is different. And everyone deals with things differently. But if we can put something really tangible and really strict in terms of a 24-hour, a 48-hour, or a 1 week timeline, then we don't give ourselves excuses for things to bounce around, because we've got this thing to say, oh, hang on, it's the 19th today. A week ago on the 12th, I was still thinking about this. Now I've got to start to work on how to move towards and move out of these things. So that is a real mental health tool to help our mental health without anything, without any disguises, without any tricks, without any other words for it. This is a great mental health tool to help our mental health. And I rely on that one, a lot, and have sounding boards. And, I've got great mates that I can talk to about so many things. there's some I can't talk to them about my mental health, so I go and talk to someone else. Or some things I can talk about my family with, but I can't talk to them about that. So find different people to talk about different things, and that helps me as well.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I like that. So it's sort of really being organised in that way as well. Well,
Can I ask you, Paul, what do you do for your mental health? I'm always interested to hear what other people do.
me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, at the moment, like I was with the startup and, I was up to like 10, 12 people including interns and that. And so I was busy all the time with people all the time. And I'm a very sociable person. So now that I've been just working from home for 6 months, I actually get out there quite a bit. And go to conferences, or today I'm going to go to Macquarie Uni, there's a lunch and learn, or I meet up with some of the old founders that I used to work with. So yeah, like just being here all the time by myself, I don't think is great. And so I get out as much as I can, meet other people, talk to friends that I have. I also get enough sleep. I sleep well and eat well, and I do go to the gym a couple of times a week, and then I go bike riding with a friend every Saturday, and then meet up with some other guys, and we chat for hours and hours on end. So that's pretty much it, and doing that practice of gratefulness.
Love it. It's just what you mentioned is like, there's no silver bullet to physical health. There's no silver bullet to mental health. And you've just listed so many good things that are so different from each other to give you a great foundation. There's exercise, there's sleep, there's social, there's conversations, communication. Like, this is what we should be doing. Just like our physical health. We can't rely on a spin class once a week. We need the spin class. We need the walking. We need the diet.
Yeah.
We need the sleep as well.
Yeah.
We do this a great foundation for great physical health or good physical health, just like we need all those things in our foundation to give us great mental health as well. So yeah, I love what you said.
Yeah. And also doing this podcast, talking to people like you, that really helps my mental health as well, because talking to people who are doing wonderful things in the space and just having conversations, even if it's virtual, it's still, it's very satisfying, and it's great to hear amazing stories like yourself of people that are really doing good stuff in the space, in the social impact and the mental health areas. So that really helps me as well. Right. Now, before we started recording today, you were saying that, usually 80% of what comes up is stuff that's come up before and you've answered before, and usually 20% of things are not, and they're the things that you really enjoy, like a challenge. And so the question I have is, what is a question that you've never been asked on any podcast at all, that you wish they would have asked you?
Oh golly. This is a good one. I used to be quite a handy cricketer. You could ask me my highest cricket score. No, don't ask me that, Paul. Okay, so I'm not sure, I'm not sure because I probably would have prepared for it. But what I get asked is, what do you want to leave people with, or what do you want people to do now that if you've shifted their attitude or shifted their thoughts towards mental health? And I would love people to start practicing these conversations, because it's about practice. It's not about perfection. And have these conversations, and if it's your first one about your own mental health, just this is it. Yeah, just compare the feeling before and after that conversation. Because if you're already having them, you know how they feel. I know how they feel. But if you've never had one before and you're afraid to have it, I understand and I get it. And even when I was going in and out of therapy, I'd be like, oh shit, here I go, back into therapy, same old Jack, same old problems. What's my therapist going to say? This is going to suck. But every time they would say, Jack, it's so good to see you, it's so good to hear your voice. Jack, what can we work on today? So be kind to yourself about whatever you're going through and start practicing these conversations and just compare. Compare how you feel before and compare how you feel after. And if you feel better, which I'm certain that most people will, so follow that bouncing ball, follow that avenue, and keep going towards that. Because talking about our feelings and emotions will do most of the heavy lifting in moving through unhelpful thoughts. And so go and try it. That's my advice in that. Yeah.
That's great advice, and yeah, I would advocate for everybody to do that. It's really important to maintain your mental health as much as possible, and we're all imperfect, but we're all trying to work towards feeling better. And I don't think we're ever going to obtain in this human world anyway, like ultimate happiness. I think we have moments of joy and happiness in our life. And some really good advice that a therapist gave me years ago is, like we have ups and downs, right? So let's say it's a scale of 1 to 10, and you're at 5, and then something fantastic happens, and you go right up to 10. You're absolutely exalted, and then just feeling fantastic. And then something bad happens, and you're right down at 0. She was saying, look, just try and maintain it between like 4 and 6, right? Even when like great things happen, if the further you go up, sometimes the further you can come down. So, just wonderful things happen and like feel great about it, but don't become completely overjoyed, because then when the bad things come, you can go lower. So I don't know, that seemed to help with me. It seemed funny at first. It's like something great, and you're happy, but you're thinking, okay, it's, you're happy. Don't get over the top with it, because then when the bad things come, so, okay, it's bad, but it's not that bad. And then you sort of maintain between the 4 and 6 level instead of like this. And really being on the startup, it's really a roller coaster ride like that. But if you can maintain, between the 4 and 6s, that was some advice that worked for me anyway.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. Right, good advice.
Yeah. So Jack, how can people, like if they want to buy some of your products, your shirts, and well, what gear do you sell, and how can they get in touch and get involved or with what you're doing, or buy some of the cool merchandise that you have?
Cool. Thanks, Paul. I'm happy to plug It's Cool to Cry. So if people want to support the brand, head to itscooltocry.com. I've got a small range of clothes, but it is growing, and I think any entrepreneur or any startup out there will know that cash is hard to come by sometimes. So, and it's a bit risky investing in stock without knowing. So that is growing, but there's some great options there at the moment, and know that every sale, 10% of that sale is donated to mental health charities. So right now we're donating 10% of every sale to the Push-Up Challenge Foundation. The Push-Up Challenge is in full swing right now. And that the donation partnerships change on every quarter, which is a great way to see what other charities and other organisations are doing out there in terms of mental health. There's some really innovative stuff out there, which is awesome. And I get to discuss what they're doing, and I get to learn about what they're doing as well, which is great. So you can buy something. I'd really love to support. The other way that you could support the brand is that I run workshops for schools, corporates, and clubs. So if there's anyone out there with a business that would like to run a mental health workshop, please head to itscooltocry.com and hit the contact us page. Now, if spending money isn't on your radar right now, I get it. It's not online either, because times are tough with cost of living crisis, yes, and starting up a business, yes. If you want to start working on and improving your mental health conversations, there's a free tool to download it. It's called cry.com. It's called the Feels Wheel. So head to entrepreneurial.com, go to the mental health hub, and there's a page called How You're Really Feeling. And this is going to give you a emotions wheel that will instantly improve your vocabulary, your emotional intelligence. Because right now, on average, all of us know 3 emotions: happy, sad, and angry. But there are a lot more than that. And we can start becoming granular with how we're feeling, which becomes we're accurately identifying and articulating how we're feeling, which does 2 main benefits. It helps us soothe our brain, because if we can name it, we can tame it. So we can navigate our conversations and navigate situations better. And 2 is where I really want to make an impact, is that we can have better and more meaningful conversations about how we're really feeling. So we might say that we're angry, but really if we dove deep, or if we had the words in front of us, we get to pick exactly how we're feeling. And that might be humiliated, frustrated, let down, embarrassed. What is it? It's embarrassed. Okay. Well, let's have a conversation about that. So that helps me have a conversation with you, and it helps you because you know exactly how I'm feeling. So if you're already having the mental health conversations, this is just going to be another string to your bow. If you haven't had a mental health conversation and you don't know how to start, then this is a beautiful way to start, because you get to look at 130 something emotions, pick one, and go and pick a safe space or find a safe space, start having those conversations right now for free.
Yeah, that's a great. I did have a look at it this morning, and there's a lot of emotions on there, and it's like you say, we only think, we're angry, we're sad, whatever. So it's hard to really articulate what we're really feeling, and that's a great way to do that, and great conversation starter as well. So great, yeah. So get out there and buy some gear and start conversations as well. Use the wheel, the feel wheel. Is it the
Feel wheel? Yeah, hang on.
the feel wheel? Yeah. It's cooltocry.com. Yeah. So great work that you're doing in the space, helping people with mental health, and from a tragic beginning or story. You've worked through your own stuff as well, and now you're helping other people in the space, and you could be saving a lot of people from having sort of major grief that you had earlier on in your life. So it's so needed, and so I'm a big supporter now, and I'm sure people listening to this will be as well.
Mate, I appreciate the support, Paul. That's very kind words. Thank you.
Yeah, it was great to have you on the show, and wishing you all the best, Jack.
Thanks very much, Paul, for listening to this potty, and more to come, mate.